Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman, here as always with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
Good. Got to talk to some wide receivers today. Got to hear from some of the younger guys who I think are going to probably be kind of a story this year. And got to hear from Chris Olave. Honestly, that was the thing I was most excited about because I don't think we've talked to Chris Olave since the Fiesta Bowl, and it's like, boy, that coming out of the Fiesta Bowl looked like it was going to be an enormous story, and I think it's kind of gotten forgotten. But I think it came back today.
Yeah, that was like January 1st. Now we're here almost October 1st, and this is basically the first time that we've gotten to talk to him. So we talked to Brian Hartline, obviously the receivers coach, talked to Chris Olave, Jameson Williams, Garrett Wilson, and Demario McCall, which was a bit of a surprise, but he's been doing this for years, so maybe it's not. He's comfortable with the media, and the media, I guess, is comfortable with him. So that's who we talked to. Um, First, it was Brian Hartline, and this isn't a talkative group per se. Brian Hartline, he can talk. I mean, he's
Mhm.
talkative. He's just not always open, I guess, or in terms of
Well,
like
let's start with the very first question of the press conference from Tony Gerdeman of BuckeyeScoop.com. And did that question get answered? Well, there was a response.
you can tell he played for Jim Tressel.
Hmm. Hmm.
But because I asked him, hey, can you just let us know, like, it's been a while, who's at X, who's at Z? And obviously, everybody, you want to train everybody at everything. I'm trying to answer that portion of the question for him so that he doesn't have to go into that. I'm like, who's rapping at X, who's at Z, who's at H? And he's like, because I'm like, we're kind of in the dark. And he's like, yeah, I think I like you guys being in the dark. So yeah, everybody's just repping everywhere. It's good to be able to play multiple spots. Versatility is good. Players will have a chance to be on the field more if they can do more things. And thank you. Yeah,
Hmm.
that was great. Now, what I can tell everybody is our understanding is I'll just run through like the two deep right now if you want, Tom.
Yep, let's do it.
Chris Olave at the Z with Julian Fleming behind him. Garrett Wilson at the H with Jackson Smith and Jigba behind him. And then Jameson Williams at the X with G. Scott Jr. behind him. Tom, correct me if I'm wrong. That's three freshmen in our two deep.
That is three freshmen in the two deep. And that's this is a weird year. They were all enrolled early. And so you would normally think, well, they went through spring ball, and nope, nope. Well, they went through summer camp, and nope, not really. So this is a weird year, but I think that's also kind of a testament to just how talented these guys are and how special this group has the opportunity to be, to have three guys in the two deep, potentially in the two deep at this point of the year. That's pretty remarkable to have three true freshmen. But I mean, those are the three guys who are the true freshmen on the offensive side of the ball who have lost their black stripes right away. And, that's not always an immediate predictor of greatness, but it's, it, you know, it beats the alternative. It's not a bad sign to lose your black stripe early.
And that fourth freshman, Mookie Cooper, this was the first time we've really gotten to ask anybody about him. And Brian Hartline said he was surprised at how advanced he is right now because he did not have a senior season of high school. And he said he also played a lot of running back in high school. So he's not really the polished Jackson Smith and Jigba who only ever played wide receiver and caught 16,000 footballs while doing it. So he said he's been impressed, surprised at how far advanced Mookie Cooper is. And he just does a lot of things naturally. His natural ability, we know Ryan Day kind of compared him a little bit to Wandale Robinson, Rondale Moore in terms of what he could do for the Ohio State offense. Now, those guys as true freshmen touched the ball 13.9 times per game. Tom.
Under.
Okay. Um, that's the show then. I've got nothing else, but it was good to hear because, when Jackson Smith and Jigba lost his black stripe and then G. Scott lost his, people were like, what's wrong with Julian Fleming? It's like, they've had like, 3 or 4 practices, give them some time. And then Julian Fleming loses his. And now it's like, well, hey, Mookie Cooper, is he going to register? Is he a bust? It's like, let's just calm down. So it was good to hear Brian Hartline say, like, Yeah, it's like, because sometimes coaches will tell you, well, he's got a lot of catching up to do. That didn't seem to be the case at all with Hartline and Cooper.
No, and this is a situation where because he didn't play his senior year of high school football and then missed the spring because of, gestures vaguely towards the universe, and then missed the summer because of same, you would think, like, if ever there was a time that would be like, well, it's completely excusable for a player to not be quite ready to contribute immediately, this would be the time. And that was sort of the situation that Chris Olave was in, where he missed his senior year of high school football. And it took a little while for him to get on the field, but then he got on the field and he was a contributor by November. And so I don't think that necessarily precludes Mookie Cooper from being a contributor. And I don't think I would read, the idea or the perception that he's fourth out of the four freshman wide receivers as, well, this guy's terrible, he'll never play. Like, these might be three of the best wide receiver prospects Ohio State has ever signed, ever in history. So being fourth behind three guys who are, up there potentially, again, let me say the word potentially, with some of the bigger names in Ohio State wide receiver history, that's okay. If you're in that, this is, again, like you said, the things we didn't hear him say. We didn't hear the, drinking through a fire hose. We didn't hear, has a lot to learn. We've seen some things, but we're not, he's not doing some of the, we didn't hear any of that. It was just, he's on his way, it sounds like. And there's a bunch of stuff beyond just catching footballs and learning the offense that he's got to do. If he's going to be an H, there's a lot of film study you got to do. As Brian Hartline said, the film doesn't lie. So if he gets to that level, the level he needs to be in terms of blocking in the running game and all the other stuff that goes into it, other than just get open, catch football, run, there's more that goes into it than that. So whenever he hits the metrics they're looking for, hits the level they're looking for, it sounds like he has the opportunity to be on the field with the other three true freshmen, and that could very well happen this fall.
I think maybe the 7-on-7 stuff has helped, I guess, squash that need for a year of football. Like, they've been able to continue that. And maybe that's why he's looked good, is because it is just 7-on-7 for the most part. And if you're going to draft a team of, guys like what Mookie Cooper can do in, dodging tacklers or, two-hand tappers, I guess, if you will, like, he's the guy that can make people miss. And so, yeah, maybe he should look good, and maybe this helps the process as they kept saying, as they put the pads on and move to real football.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll see how that goes with him. Brian Hartline talked about Garrett Wilson in the slot. We've talked about that before, and how missing the spring kind of was not good. It hurts the development, because there's all kinds of things you have to be able to do in the slot. There's more things you have to understand, just space, going the right way in terms of, if the linebacker's here, you shade more this way. If this guy is here, you shade more that way. And he did say that's something like Mookie Cooper does naturally. Garrett Wilson has great spatial awareness. I think Ryan Day has said that before, and Brian Hartline as well, where they have an understanding of what's around them. And so I think we all expect big things from him. I asked him about it, and yeah, he's excited. He said he wasn't really, like, this wasn't something he was looking for after last year, but obviously he's going to do whatever the coaches ask him to do. And just because he's at H now doesn't mean he won't be somewhere else later, because, as we know, this is the year, unlike any other, where you're going to need depth, you're going to need versatility, and we already know he can do X because he did it last year. Tom, I also suspect he could probably play Z, which seems like that's what he's always been in my mind anyway. So there's really no concerns there. Jameson Williams, I tried to ask about his development, and you know how you're saying, like, Brian Hartline was really praising Mookie Cooper with Jameson Williams and Garrett Wilson. He's like, well, they still have work to do. They need to work on this. They need to work on that. And it's interesting that they're two of the top three receivers on the team, but he's focused on the stuff that they still need to do, the stuff that they aren't doing yet. Yes, they've made strides, but they need to do this and they need to do that. And you almost don't want to, I don't know if it's press clippings or what, but Hartline is always very careful about how he praises his receivers. And we talked about that, I think, last week or the week before. So when he does praise somebody, it stands out. And when he doesn't, you're like, well, I guess that's just Brian,
Yeah, I think there's the guys he praises, the guys he, talks about some of the things they need to work on, and then there's the guys whose names don't come up. You could be in either of the first two groups, and that's not really a bad thing. There were some guys whose names didn't come up who are veteran receivers today, and we were on a call with the wide receivers for close to an hour. So that's not a good sign. You want to at least be getting talked about in some form. So I do think that I was surprised that Garrett Wilson was like, he seemed very not super excited about the move to H, which is interesting to me because that seems like a spot where that has been the leading receiver for Ohio State for a number of years, is that H spot. And, I know you talked to Ryan Broyles, who was one of those slot receivers in the Kevin Wilson offense at Oklahoma and had like 130 catches. And, we did our Garrett Wilson over-under game sometime this spring, and you kept saying numbers and I kept saying over, because I think the potential there is almost limitless, where he is a more explosive player than KJ Hill is. He's probably a better receiver, just overall well-rounded receiver, than Paris Campbell. And those guys have both had monster years in the slot. So it's like, what is this going to look like? Because he has a better quarterback than either of those guys had, probably. And he's got a darn good running game and a pretty good offensive line and a real talented wide receiver group around him. And there's not a lot that says to me, Garrett Wilson's going to have take a step back this year. Like, I don't see that at all. So I was a little surprised at that, but that may be, the prestige of being an outside receiver may be something he's, that's where he sees himself ultimately wanting to be is that Devin Smith style Z receiver or, something like that. But yeah, that was a little surprising to me, because it sure seems like that's going to be a fantastic opportunity for him this fall.
Yeah, maybe it is a little like the outside corner type of thing. And that's the marquee stuff, the outside receiver, outside corner. But I see in the NFL all kinds of slot receivers catching all kinds of passes all day long, and first rounders in the slot trying to defend them. So I think there's kind of some melding in there where how right tackle has become important as well, and the guards. It's like it's not just left tackle anymore. It's not just the outside receivers anymore. The Hartline said this is as close as he's ever been to 9 deep. Or 3 deep at each position, which I guess is 9 deep, if my math is correct. I think a lot of that is the slot, maybe. There's he was asked about Kamryn Babb, said it's great to have him. He's a great guy, incredible story. They hope that he can do something this year. To me, that I don't see him in the 2 deep right now. I see him, if he can help, that's great, and that's one of the stories of the year. And you just want to be able to see him play the first game and each game after that and the last game. And this is a free year for everybody. And, he's still a redshirt sophomore. Was he 20?
Sounds right.
So, I mean, he's still got time. And right now it's baby steps with him. Let's just get through an entire season. Next year we'll work on even more into the offense, although that's maybe not what he's thinking. He's obviously working to play. For me, I just want to see him healthy for a season.
Yeah, I mean, if you told me right now Kamryn Babb is healthy all season and catches 200 yards and maybe scores a couple touchdowns, like, yep, that would be great. That would be a wonderful, inspiring story. I don't think Ohio State's relying on him for anything more than that. And people have forgotten Kamryn Babb coming out of high school. You look at his high school film and it's like, oh, this guy is bananas. Like, this guy is, and they have recruited a lot of guys since then that were, Garrett Wilson was that, and then you have a couple guys who are in this year's class that are like that. But don't sleep on Kamryn Babb long term. I mean, this year is probably he's not. This is not probably going to be a 1,000-yard receiving season. But if he can stay healthy this year and set him up for 2021, then you potentially have the opportunity to be a little bit more of an impact player at that point if Chris Olave moves on, or something like that, and you have some spots open up on that depth chart. So yeah, he's someone who I think we're probably a little more objective than most of the people listening to this show, but I don't think it's out of line to say I'm rooting for Kamryn Babb to have, I would love to see Kamryn Babb have a good season this year. I would really, really love it. He has gone through so much crap the last few years that it would be really, really awesome to see him get to play and get to make a difference at some point on the field and make a couple plays.
Yeah, because he is a leader for the team. He is a leader off the field. He's just one of those good kids that you like to have around the program. We know his mom is with the parents organization, and a big part of that as well. Stepmom, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So it's easy to root for him. One of my favorite things of the day was Brian Hartline talking about how, like, one of the ways they've improved Jameson Williams is basically told him, like, imagine you're not like super fast. What would you need to do to become a better receiver if you weren't the fastest man in America? And it is interesting because it would not force you to kind of change your brain, basically. Like, yeah, I do need to do the little things, and he has become a better route runner, and it's just an interesting thing that's kind of where they took him. Like, imagine that you weren't fast. How would you? Let's work on those other things to make you a better receiver. And I'm just imagining, like, does he run in slow motion? Does he, like, it takes it to like 70%. I do remember, like, Chris Carter said one time, I never ran a route full speed because he always wanted to have a little something extra for the defensive backs. Now, I'm not saying that that's what is going on here, but it's an interesting tool or an interesting way to teach Jameson Williams to be like, hey, slow it down. Don't be so fast. Let's work on these cuts. Let's work on this top end. Let's work on this. And then once all that is there, then we can turn it up to 11.
Well, if all you needed to play wide receiver was speed, the Oakland/Los Angeles/Oakland/Las Vegas Raiders would have a whole lot more Super Bowls in the last 30 years than they do. You can't just be, John Jett and just, oh, look, I'm so fast. And, well, I can't do anything else other than run fast in a straight line. Like that, there's more that's important than just that. And that's a good way to look at it from Brian Hartline's teaching perspective is, okay, yes, you can run faster than everyone else on the field probably, but what if you couldn't? There are those kids that will come out of high school where, they're playing just against overmatched opposition and they look like Superman on the field. And then they get to the college level. It's like, oh, well, now there are other people who are as fast as me or almost as fast as me. And now I need to fall back on my other elements of my game. And, well, I hope I have them, because if I don't, then all of a sudden I'm not going to get that on the field no matter how fast I am. His Jameson Williams speed is probably going to be plenty. He probably doesn't need to be too much more refined other than just run a 9 route against Rutgers. And that'll probably work just fine. When you're playing at Clemson or in Alabama or whoever else they would face, and I was going to say Oklahoma, but that's not a concern for 2 different reasons. One is they won't be there. 2 is, well, the reason they won't be there. But Georgia or Oregon or whoever it is that's that 4th team in the playoff this year, they're going to have cornerbacks who someone on that team is probably as fast or almost as fast as Jameson Williams. So, okay, if you can't just get 3 yards of separation just by running fast in a straight line, then what do you do? And having, developing that now, when you don't necessarily need it, that sets you up to have it when you do need it later. And, again, going against the defensive backs that they have on the field this year, that's probably, he's going to need it more in practice than he's going to need it during most of that regular season, would be my guess.
And as we've seen with so many players, and this was something that they talked about, this is something that Urban Meyer has talked about in the past, Jameson Williams has become a more organized student. And that's, academics are better. He said it himself, he's just more organized. And when that happens, the practicing gets better, the play on the field gets better, the academics gets better. Urban has talked about that forever. Like when the grades start to get better, everything else starts to come with that. And it's a matter of age and maturity. And so that's maybe the biggest step right now for Jameson Williams is that he's fine. He's settled. And now you can build, and you can't really build until you get settled. And as Brian Hartline said, he's got a portfolio now, and so they're working on that. And I'm, you go from guy to guy. like, man, this guy's going to be good. This guy's going to be good. This guy's going to be good. Tom, you know who else is going to be good? Chris Olave.
Mm. Mm.
And we started the show by talking about him. The last time we saw him, he broke a route, maybe shouldn't have, and that was the end of the season. And he said that, immediately after he's and until now, he's still not over it. And he thinks about it a lot. The what ifs. He plays a what if game. What if I hadn't broken it off? What if they hadn't called that play? And like, there's no way to get over that other than to like be able to play again. And so when it looked like there was no season, I'm sure he was just completely, defeated at that point. But it was interesting that he said he was definitely coming back, even if there's no season. He wasn't going to be opting out. He wasn't going to be leaving. And why was that, Tom?
Said he did not want his career to end on that play and that game. That was not the way he wanted to go out at Ohio State. And he probably would have been a first round-ish NFL pick if he had come out. If there was no 2020 season, he comes out in 2021. He probably is a first round pick. But yeah, he said, and that was not just him saying it. That was Hartline said, like, you may have heard that he was thinking about it. He was not thinking about it, and it was pretty definitive. So yeah, it sure didn't sound like motivation was going to be a big issue for Chris Olave this year. He didn't say it, but I sure bet he's hoping to get another crack at Clemson. I think he would like another shot at Clemson with Justin Fields and the whole gang that they've got back this year, because there was very much the air of unfinished business there. I mean, go back to January, Ryan Day had a press conference. This is long enough ago that we were in the same room as Ryan Day, if you can believe that, if you can believe such a thing. He said that this was probably on signing day, would be my guess. Ryan Day talked about the fact that Chris Olave didn't eat for a couple days after that Fiesta Bowl. I mean, he took that hard. However hard you took that loss, he took it harder, and he's still carrying it, I think, a little bit. But he's talked about using it as a chip on his shoulder instead of moping around. It's more inspiration now. So yeah, that will be in a season that could be chock full of real interesting storylines. Chris Olave gets another shot at Clemson would be a real interesting storyline to cover.
Yeah, he said, what have the months been like since the Fiesta Bowl? It's tough, especially for me. I care so much about this team and this university. And so he's been working hard every day and still trying to spread positive energy, even while he's got this funk that he's working through and thinking about probably way too often. But they use it to motivate themselves. So, I would assume there's probably nobody on this team, maybe except a freshman, who is like, yeah, I don't want to see Clemson this year. I'm sure they all want to see Clemson. I don't know if Clemson wants to see Ohio State, or like, I don't know if everybody at Clemson wants to see Ohio State. But again, Clemson is 4-0 against the Buckeyes. So why wouldn't they? I mean, they own the Buckeyes. They can name their score, I'm sure. But I think, Tom, like, everybody wants to see this game.
Yeah, I think, in the same way that I think there was probably a little bit of eye rolling when it was like, what, Clemson, Alabama 3, like, okay, I've seen this movie before. I think this will be one that people are maybe a little more interested in seeing just at a national level, because that was such a good game last year. And I think there's probably a perception out there that might not have been a result that reflected the overall play on the field that evening. So I think that's going to be a real interesting story. And then, Clemson is the school that Ohio State has played the most times without winning. Anyone in the nation. It's Clemson, and then it's Florida State, I think. And, a lot of Ohio State seasons have ended real, real badly against Clemson. Woody Hayes in 1978 in the Gator Bowl, for one. They had the Orange Bowl when Braxton Miller got hurt. They had
his last game as a quarterback.
Yeah, the 31-0 playoff game. Tim Beck's last game as offensive coordinator at Ohio State. Let's not forget Ed Warner. And then this last year, I mean, it hasn't just been 4 losses. It's been 4 like really memorable, painful losses for Ohio State football. And this is a program that has not lost a whole lot of games since Urban Meyer showed up, and 3 of them have been to a team they've only played 3 times that's not even in their conference. So yeah, that would be a real interesting game if that happens again this fall. One thing that Olave did talk about was his leadership. And you said, he was trying to bring that energy and lead by example as one of the veterans in the wide receiver room. He said he is not a big talker, and he is a quiet guy. Like he is not someone that I expect to see on any of those hype reels, standing up in front of the locker room and yelling this year. That would be pretty. Yeah, that would be pretty out of character to see Chris Olave up there yelling. So he's a soft-spoken guy. I don't think he's a real big talker. But yeah, he has said he's been trying to lead by example, and just rather than yelling at the guys and saying, do it this way, he's just been, this is the way I do it. This is the right way to do it. And, basically hoping to inspire them to follow his example.
I did find it funny when Brian Hartline was asked, why is Garrett Wilson good in the slot? And he detailed all these reasons why Garrett Wilson is good in the slot. And then he's like, the other guy's like, Chris Olave would be terrible in the slot. And then he revealed, like, Chris Olave is in the room with them, so he's listening to everything, and don't take his words seriously. Speaking of the slot, Demario McCall, the other receiver, the fourth receiver that we talked to, said that his goal is to just find a role on the team, whether it's special teams, whether it's running back, receiver. He just wants a role. And Ryan Day has talked about that. Finding specific things that he can do, things that Mookie can do, where you can use everybody and make them feel like they are part of the team. And that's really what he's looking for. That's what Demario wants. Is just, sure, I'm sure he'd take 15 carries or 15 catches, but just give him a job. Let him do something. Give him a role. And he was asked, he's fifth-year senior now. And he was asked, has it been frustrating? Are you frustrated by your career and your lack of a role to this point? He said he was. And it's always, when we talk to Demario every year in the preseason like this, it's is this your year? You're going to do this. What are you excited about? The fans want to see you. And this year, I guess because of everything, it was a more reserved situation talking to him on Zoom, and where he kind of felt, I don't know, more determined, or maybe not thrilled with the questioning, or because maybe he it's coming. Just as Chris Olave knew he was going to be talked to about the Fiesta Bowl, Demario, there are certain questions that he's going to be asked, and he got them. And I'm sure he's plenty motivated on his own, but it's probably annoying to get the questions. Hey, man, like Jonathan Cooper. Hey, man, like, why haven't you been great yet?
He is kind of a little bit of a Jonathan Cooper. I mean, Jonathan Cooper, obviously a captain, and is a little more established as a leader on the team, but very, very much came in as like fringy 5-star kind of prospects. And here we are 4 or 5 years later, and it's like, well, maybe this will be the year it happens. And I'm sure, like, that's the storyline for Demario McCall, because that's what people think when they talked about Demario McCall is, well, this guy came in as a top 50 player overall in the nation, and you see him make plays in, kind of garbage time. You see him make plays on special teams. It's like, oh man, this guy, get him the ball in space and just watch out. And then it's like, yeah, he doesn't get the ball in space that much, just because, hey, this is a pretty crowded depth chart. And when he does, it doesn't always go, in your mind, you're expecting it to just go all the way every time. And it doesn't. And it's a little bit of like Dontre Wilson, where Dontre Wilson came in with all that hype, and you had that first fall camp, and it was like, oh man, you just wait for Dontre Wilson. And then, like, all of a sudden Dontre Wilson's career was over. It was like, yeah, I mean, it was okay. It was fine, but it wasn't, it never turned into 1,800 yards receiving or anything like that in a season. And that was sort of the expectation. So he is probably set up in a little bit in an unfair position based on those expectations. But, this is a year, and I think he has maybe centered himself a little better, where his goal is not to be, win the Heisman Trophy. His goal is to contribute. And if your goal is to contribute, that's probably something you can figure out a way to do. He's talented enough that if he does all the other stuff that they need to do, blocking and running good routes and all that kind of stuff, there will be a way to get him the ball, and they're going to be looking for ways to get him the ball, when he's the best option in that situation against that defense.
And I look to have forward to having the same conversation about him next season as well, which will be nice. So, Tom, let's go ahead and wrap up. Anything else that you wanted to throw in before we call it a show?
I did like the last question of the press conference, which was Justin Fields is a vegan now, and is Justin Fields trying to convert the rest of the wide receiver unit to veganism, since he's obviously working with them at practice a lot, he hangs out around them, and Demario McCall and Jameson Williams just laughed, and it didn't sound like it was a yes laugh. Sounded like it was a no. So Justin Fields may be able to lead them in a lot of ways, but leading them to tofu apparently is not one of those ways.
What does a yes laugh sound like?
I don't know. It sounds like you've got chickpeas in your mouth. I don't know.
All right, we got to head out of here, I guess. And so thank you all for listening. Make sure to check out BuckeyeScoop.com. There's a ton there. Check the Ask the Insiders board. There's breaking news all the time going on. News of a possible pending commitment coming as well. So if you're not a member, you might want to sign up and check that out. And we will get back with you guys. We talked to the linebackers on Thursday. So we will get back with you on Thursday. We talked to Ryan Day on Friday. So probably a Saturday show. Not each. Like a Friday combined Saturday show. So just calm down.
And a Patreon exclusive show for previewing the weekend as well. So we'll have plenty of content for you, and even more if you're a subscriber at patreon.com/Buckeye Weekly.
And hopefully Tom will remember that those shows are going on, because he forgot about today's show. But that's okay. We got to go now. We will see you guys later.